I went to the grave of Mu'adh bin Jabal. After all these years, their love for each other was so authentic and so amazing that even their graves are in the same land, like they're not far apart. Here's Mu'adh bin Jabal, and there's Ja'far bin Abi Talib. Here comes Bajan again. Bajan, let's see if you don't glitch, bro.
Let's see. Bismillah.
You're still glitching, but it's all good. We need to do fundraiser for your internet and for your stuff, Bajan, for sure.
My speed is like 300. That's my problem. I don't understand.
Do you go online other place for others? Is this first time?
Yeah, I use StreamYard for my local streaming too, and it didn't glitch.
It's okay, Bajan. We feel your pain. It's fine.
My pain is deep, my friend.
But because your pain is deep, I'm gonna say one thing to you. But then you want me to say something. I'm gonna say that poem that my friend wrote for me. Okay, and I'll
No,
sing it.
that's why I don't want to miss that poem.
I'll sing it for you. Okay, and this is my friend just wrote it like recently, a couple of weeks ago, as I was talking about this concept of the Sahaba and how the Prophet, the first thing he did was built an ummah first. Before he did anything, he built an ummah, built a group of people that were ready to live and die for each other. So he says, I don't know. I'm gonna try to say it. He says. आंखें तुम्हारी चाहते हैं देखना जमाले मोहम्मद इश्क़ मोहम्मद झुका लो निगाहें पलकों में मोती लेके नदामत वफा की अलामत ये मुक़द्दर है इश्क़ का वफा की ग़ुलामी मिटा दो ये फ़िरक़े फिर उम्मत है बाक़ी कहते हैं ये लोग कि ऐसी वफा की तड़पते दिल से जाके तो पूछो वो जिसने नमाज में शब रोते गुजारी छुपाया हमें जिसने साए कमली जो हमको वो एक उम्मत छोड़ गए थे तोड़ के हमने ये कैसी वफा की वो ताइफ की वादी में खाका के पत्थर तड़पते रहे थे हमारे लिए फिर उन्हीं के तरीकों को हमने पैरों से रोंदा गया था ये कैसी वफा की आओ हम एक दिन जाके मदीना बना ले मुक़द्दर इश्क़ मुहम्मद लेके नदामत वफा की अलामत बन जाए एक उम्मत वो जन्नत हमारी. That's just that's just the poem that he wrote. I mean, it's so beautiful. Like, I didn't know how to read it. Hopefully it did justice to it. But it's just written from the heart. And were you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Mufti Sab. That poem, I was just in the back end listening. I was so beautiful. So beautiful. MashaAllah.
It's just basically the idea is ye kaisi wafaki, man. Like the Prophet did so much. So salam, he's like basically saying tarapte dil se jaake to pucho, man. Like go ask this man who had this heart full of pain that how much did he do to bring everyone together. Unhi ke tariqon ko pairon se ronda. It's like in the same things that he did, we just walked right over it, you know. What did we? It's like the ones like that ummah that the Prophet left together, we broke them apart. What kind of loyalty is this? The one who went to Taif and tolerated the stones that were being pelted at him. Even at that time, he was restless and he still made dua for us. This is like then he says he gives us this motivation. So let's go back to Medina one day and go to and make a promise to the Prophet. O Prophet of Allah, you left this ummah together. You worked hard for this. We're gonna do the same thing. And so that's what the message of this juz to me is, man. It's just that if we have this love for each other, it makes following Islam easier. It makes everything becomes easier for us. Reading Qur'an, doing everything becomes easier. So Allah give us tawfiq, man. The Sahaba were like that. They had this immense amount of love. And of course, I can go on and on. I want to hear you, Bajan, about this. What do you think?
Mufti Saab, number one, before we get into the content of the poem, I want everyone on the chat just say mashallah for Mufti Saab's boldness and his confidence to I don't think he prepared to sing it. He prepared to.
Of course not.
And you didn't look like you were prepared, but you sang so well. And God has given you a great voice. And mashallah, you have a great personality. Mashallah, very, very knowledgeable. The only thing that I have that is better than you is that I'm better looking. But
that's not. Okay, you are better looking than her. Go for it.
You can't have everything, God distributes everything fairly. But mashallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you, preserve you. And the lines in the poem, honestly, I was in the back end just almost in tears because it is truly, sometimes these poems, they share so many, there's so much meaning in it. Just in one line, you can write a whole book. And a lot of it's basically how the Prophet put so much effort to unite the world. How he was able to just take the stones and forgive people, like in Taif, and that's the brotherhood and sisterhood that was built in Medina. And you talked about this earlier, how much the Prophet cried when his companions died. And he missed them so much that he used to go visit their graves. Years later, he used to talk about them. It was just a great community from every aspect. And really, only Deen can do that to you.
Oof, you hit the nail on the head.
Only Deen can do to you. يا أيها الذين اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. Only Qur'an, Deen, like a lot of people see, we love each other, right? Like, Mufti Saab, if it wasn't for the parents, the Deen they put into our lives, we would not have this relationship.
But then you have to continue this conversation after I say a poem of Iqbal. Wallahi, we conclude with Iqbal poem. He says about that. That's good you mentioned that about youngsters. Iqbal, he says, Tere sofe hai afrangi, tere qaline hai Irani, lahu mujhko rulati hai jawano ki tan asani. He's like, I don't know if he looked at in 2022 and he said this poem because it's interesting the way he said it. He said, I'm going to say it in our own words. He's like, you're chilling on your sofa with those Iranian carpets, Persian carpets and Persian, curtains. And then, lahu mujhko rulati hai jawano ki tan asani. And you're sitting, he's like, it makes me cry that you're sitting there thinking about, how I'm going to solve the problems in all over the world. I got this, man. We're going to do this. In the comfort of your house, AC blasting, everything is good. It's like you're so comfortable, but you think you're going to solve problems of the world. How's that possible? Then he says, "Na dhoond is cheez ko, us cheez ko tahzeeb hadar ki tajalli mein, ke paya maine istighna mein mi'raj muslimani." He said, don't seek, don't aspire for that thing in the modern world, that all this modern glitter and glamour. He said, I found what you're looking for in these things in the istighna of Salman al-Farsi anhu. Your elevation in the eyes of Allah is in proportionate to how much you distance yourself from the aspirations of this world. The more you distance yourself, the more you're elevated in the eyes of Allah. It's called Mi'raj Musalmani. The
Wow.
ascension of a believer is based on istighna. Then he says this powerful statement. He says, "Uqabi ruh jab bedar hoti hai jawanon mein, nazar aati hai usko manzil asmanon mein."
Oh,
Once you have the spirit of that falcon, and that is awakened inside of you, then you realize that your real place, that your real destination is somewhere in the skies. It doesn't even, you can't get it here. You cannot. It's not, it doesn't matter
you
what
say something about Jawano mein.
Huh? Ji?
You say something about Jawano mein.
Uqabi ruh jab bedar hoti hai jawanon mein, because he's referring to, no, this poem is called Nojawan Muslim. It's ek Nojawan ke naam. It's referring to a youngster. He's talking to a youngster. He says, when this youth develops the spirit of this falcon, this uqab, nazar aati hai usko apni manzil asman. The first thing that happens when you decide to change your life and you make the correct intention, then you realize aspirations of these worldly things you will get it anyways. That's written for you. So you only find your real abode and your real happiness somewhere in the skies. Then he concludes with this powerful statement. He says, "Nahi tera nashe man qasd sultani ke gumbad par, shahi hai basera kar paharon ki chatanon mein." We can talk a whole episode about just Shaheen. He says, your abode, like, how we have this final, like, when I get there, I'll be okay. Like, I just want to get there. I just want to get a house. I want to get a paid off house, or I just want to get done with med school, whatever it is. Nahi tera nashe man qasd sultani ki gumbad, but he metaphorically says it's not that dome of that palace that you're looking at that and you think you're going to get there, everything you'll have it. No, tu shahi hai, you're a falcon. Basera kar paharo ki chatanon mein. Just keep flying from one peak of the mountain to the other peak of the mountain. Keep your aspirations in the sky somewhere. You don't belong in this world. But Allama Iqbal, he says something so powerful in Bange Dara. I read this poem like a couple of weeks ago. It took me like a couple of days to get my head over it. And even then, the first few lines of it, I still don't get it properly, right? It's this conversation between the stars. Like, Iqbal does this a lot. This is conversation between the stars. And they're sort of like backbiting about the human beings.
Iqbal's talking to the stars.
No, Iqbal's talking about the stars. Like one star is talking to other star. And they're sort of like backbiting about the human being. So one star says, man, this human, look at him. He's just sleeping at night. He doesn't do anything. The other star says he's backing up the human. He's like, yo, leave him alone. You guys are supposed to be up at night, giving light. And the human being works during the day. Leave him alone. The third star comes along and says, listen. He says, Waqif ho, agar lazzat-e bedari shab se, unchi hai thurayya se bhi ye khaq pur asrar. He says, if this human being knew the joy and comfort of staying awake at night and calling towards Allah in desperation, which is we're going to be coming into the last 10 nights, so it fits perfectly in our discussion today. All you stars who are chilling up here thinking you're all big and bad, like all this light, this human being will be flying way higher than you and will be much more bright than you. So don't pur asrar, ye khake pur asrar means this. I know you're talking about this human that's made of dirt, the lowest point on the planet. But if it knew the power of standing in front of Allah at night, just if it knew it, it would just go from there to above your ranks in 1 second.
Wow.
Then he says, आगोश में उसकी वो तजल्ली है कि जिसमें खो जाएंगे अफलाक सब ताबित व सय्यार. He says आगोश में, under, like next to him, beside him, within him, he has that light, that brightness, that you are fascinated over your brightness, that you're all the way on top of the sky and your light is reaching the earth. But he within him or her, they have this brightness, this light, that all these stars and all thabit wa sayyar, the ones that are moving and the ones that are still in the orbits, they will lose their light in front of that light of that human being, because the light of the human being comes from the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's nur of Allah. Wow. Naga fiza bange adan se hui labrez. So while they're having this conversation, all of a sudden, naga means suddenly. Bang means the voice of adhan. So this voice of adhan is talking about tahajjud adhan. They heard the adhan in the skies. वो नारा के हिल जाता है जिससे दिल को हिसार. He said that nagma, that statement that could shake the cold hearts of mountains.
Wow.
Look what Iqbal is saying. One is to say a cold heart, right? One is to say the cold heart of a mountain. So imagine what he's saying over here. Metaphorically, he's saying that it doesn't matter how cold your heart is. This Allahu Akbar at night and standing in front of Allah, doesn't matter how bad your heart is, bang, you will find yourself like just so smooth, so soft. Allah will open up everything for you. And not only, it's talking about human beings cold heart, but mountains, because mountains don't shake. He said, but this will shake the cold heart of mountains. So this is Allah saying, "Amma yujib al-muttarra idha da'aw." This is basically the effect of understanding. If a person understood the power of standing up at night, Umar ibn Khattab anhu, you could, I want you to say something. But Umar ibn Khattab anhu, what did he say?
When you
say about
when
this?
you're speaking, I feel ashamed to speak. Honestly, it's just so much knowledge, so much wisdom.
Yeah, but I want you to say something though, you know.
Sometimes staying quiet is saying things too. हमारी खामोशी में बहुत कलाम है.
Iqbal says, subhanAllah, so powerfully.
Mufti, I'm going to say Iqbal?
Yeah.
Oh, let me get back and sit back and
He says it so beautifully. He says why this happens. He says, Dil zinda wa bedar agar ho to betadrij batadrij. Bande ko ata karte hain chashme nigran aur. Ahwal wa maqamat pe maqoof hain sab kuch. हर लहजा है साले के ज़मान और मकान और अल्फाज व मानी में तफावत नहीं लेकिन मुल्ला की अज़ा और मुजाहिद की अज़ा और परवाज़ है दोनों की इसी एक फ़िज़ा में परवाज़ है दोनों की इसी एक फ़िज़ा में गरगस का जहां और है शाहीन का जहां और है.
Allah Akbar.
Before
you go to translation, there's something about Iqbal in Shaheen. Like, you know, he loves this hawk, this falcon.
But can you say one poem of Shaheen, please? Just try.
Just translate the poem. I'll say.
No, please, just one. You said you're a clutch guy. Say one. Just give your attempt at it. Just anything. Anything in your mind.
तुंदे बादे मुखालिफ से मत घबरा ए औकाब, ये तो चलती है तुझे ऊंचा उड़ाने के लिए.
Mashallah, mashallah. Okay, that's not his poem, by the way. It's Dr. Jawad's grandfather's. It's referred to Iqbal. Cool, that's good though. Mashallah. So, what does he say, Bajan? He says, Dil zinda wa bedar agar ho to batadrij. It's from the same verse in the Qur'an, where in this 25th juz, where Allah mentions that أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَجَعَلَ عَلى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً فَمَنْ يَهْدِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ. So this whole surah is like giving us the mechanism of making correct decisions, right? Look, Surah Jathiyah talks about kneeling in front of Allah, like people who will be kneeling in front of Allah out of embarrassment. So make the right decision. Kneel in front of Allah on this planet, so you don't have to kneel in akhirah. Make the correct decision. You know, it's all about making the right. Which side do you want to be with? You want to be with the friends who are going to take you away, or like who do you want to be with? And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So he says, in the Quran, what is that? What is this verse saying? That a person who does not come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he just makes decisions based on what's convenient, right? Ta'isa abdul dinar wa abdul dirham wa abdul qatifa am khatifa. That khasifa, sorry. He said, and destruction is for the one who's a slave of wealth, dinar and dirham, and destruction is for the one who's a slave of comfort. Like, just because when you're only about your comfort, like you see them, I was giving example in I'tikaf, you know, you see the masjid and they have these, you know, these outlets, right, Bajan? What happens to everybody? Right when they come to the masjid for I'tikaf, everyone wants to be next to the outlet because that's comfortable for them. You sit in the car, everyone wants to be in the most comfortable seat. Everyone, the whole world is just trying to be comfortable. And so now your decisions, the decision-making ability of yours is gone because comfort is your master and you're its slave. So so if comfort means taking someone else's right, you'll do it. If comfort,
translate the Iqbal poem, please.
That's what I've come back to now. He says that Dil zinda wa bidar agar ho to batadrij. If the heart is alive and it's awake, then slowly what happens? Bande ko ata karte hain chashme nigran aur. Then this person gets blessed with the inward eye slowly but surely. Wow. Okay, now they can start having basira. He says, ahwal wa maqamat pe maqoof hai sab kuch. Har lahza e salik ka zama aur makan aur hai. Then I'll say the next line. Alfaz wa ma'ani mein tafawut nahi lekin. There's no difference in the words and in the meanings, meaning the words of adhan are the same as it was before and the same as it is today. The words of Qur'an are the same as it was before, same as it is today. There's no tafawut, there's no difference. But he says, Mullah ki adhan, meaning a person who just orator, just speaking, not like an alim, but he's talking about a person just a robot, just speaking, you know. It's different. The effect is different. And mujahid ki adhan or versus the one who's struggling and striving. It's completely different. The spirit is different. It's the same in words.
His actions back up his statement.
Actions also, but the spirit is also different, right? The way you say it is also different. And it goes from the heart to the heart, not from just the tongue to the ears. So Allah make our words come from our heart and fall upon the ears of the heart and not the ears of the head. So he says that the next part is just it's like, you know, the best part of the poem. He says, Parvaz hai donon ki isi ek fiza mein. Both of these birds are both flying and hovering on the same sky. So they're not different places.
God loves giving the analogy of bird and sky.
Both on the same sky. All right? They're both on the same sky. But then he says, the vulture's jahan aur hai. A vulture's life and everything about a vulture is completely different. No. Gargas. Okay, vulture. Ka jahan aur hai. And Shahi ka jahan aur hai. Like falcon or eagle, whichever one you translate it as, their jahan is different than a vulture. It's like even though they're living in the same, they're flying in the same sky. Why? Because if you look at the vulture, it eats dead meat. It has a complete low life versus like an eagle and a falcon. It's only eats pure things. It only comes down and preys on meat that the animals that it preys upon itself. Does not take the najis or the leftover of any other animal that was preyed. And he says they're both different. You know, because this person, he's saying similarly in this world, we're walking on the same planet, same earth, but Sahaba ka jahan aur hai or tumhara jahan aur hai. Why?
Wow.
Because they were like falcons, you know, they were pure people. And we're just people that we just want to survive and we don't care about people's rights. And our decision-making skills are completely, we have blinders on because we're closer to shaitan than we are close to Allah. So this is Surah Shura, and then that's why Surah Zukhruf comes next.
You know, this discussion can be it can be hours long. We're taking decisions from people who have blindfolds of the dunya on their eyes. Because they even when they're giving you advice and it might be sincere, there is a biases. And of course, you don't want to ask anyone for opinion that doesn't know nothing about the subject, doesn't have a background in that field. But it's so important to also talk to someone who has a sound understanding of both places, dunya and akhirah.
Iqbal, there's a few things he said. So now look at their qualities and then see where we are. See how we are in our salah and how particular we are in our salah. So this is the first quality that Allah is highlighting that led to their downfall. So we have this common notion in the ummah today that, hey, you know, where did we get it wrong? And how can we get back onto that same pattern and pedestal that we were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba. Now, the first thing we got to get straight is our salah with Allah. You know, but then you say this very nicely. You say,
what's that poem like? Tu sajda karta hai kahin aur sochta kahin, something like that. That's one poem that I remember. Like,
oh yeah. Sajda ishq ho to ibadat mein maza aata hai. Khali sajdon mein to dunya hi basa karti hai. He's like a sajda with love and love for Allah. Then that worship also has enjoyment. Khali sajdon mein to dunya basa karti hai. Dunya hi basa karti hai. He said, just sajda without the love of Allah and the love of the Prophet ﷺ is a sajda full of dunya. Log kehte hain ke bas farz ada karna hai. Aisa lagta hai ke koi qarz liya ho Rabb se. People say, let's just get done with fard. The Prophet ﷺ said, a munafiq's quality is that he waits few minutes before qada and he prays 4 rakats like a chicken, pecks her head up and down, and he's done or she's done. So he said, log kehte hain ke bas farz ada karna hai. Aisa lagta hai ke koi qarz liya ho Rabb se. People say, just got to complete the fard, man, move on. Alhamdulillah, we got done with it. It looks like as if, you've taken a loan from Allah, you're trying to repay him for it. Tere sajde se kahin tere sajde कहीं तुझे काफिर ना कर दे ए इकबाल.
This one.
तेरे सजदे कहीं तुझे काफिर ना कर दे इकबाल, तू झुकता कहीं और है और सोचता कहीं और है.
This is the line. Man.
Yeah. It's like oh Iqbal, maybe your sajda will take you further from Allah and further from Deen, because you're bowing down in front of somebody, but you're thinking about something else.
Oh,
you know, tu jhukta kahin aur hai aur sochta kahin aur hai.
Just imagine sitting in the company of your beloved when your mind is distracted with something else.
Imagine.
No one would accept that.
No, exactly.
Accept that. Nobody, no lover, no beloved, no wife, no husband would accept that.
But this she hit it she nailed it on the head.
Yeah, of course. I wasn't saying I knew the poem. I was saying that there's something that sounds like this. Like it sounds like dum 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 dum, something like that. And it ended up with more depth.
But thank you for that, sister. Yeah. So now we take that into consideration, and then we look at, Iqbal, if you allow me, Iqbal says somewhere else, he says, वाइद कौम की वो पुख्ता ख्याली न रही, बर्क़ तबई न रही, शुअला मक़ाली न रही. He says, रह गई रस्म आदा, रूह बिलाली न रही, फलसफा रह गया, तलक़ीन ग़ज़ाली न रही. So I mean, it honestly is it's
beautiful.
It's hard to translate the whole thing, but basically, he says the person who's calling people, wa'id qawm, like you and I, like calling people towards Allah, we're not even firm on what we're saying. We're not even sure about. We're still in doubt about what we're calling people towards, and that's another thing that's mentioned as the second quality I was going to mention about. That's mentioned in Surah Ma'idah, Surah An'am. لَوْلَا يَنْهَاهُمُ الرَّبَّانِيُّونَ. Allah mentions the second part to that was the ulama, the leaders never stopped them. They just kept on going. They were complacent. They kept changing Deen and the commandments of Deen based on the demand of the public. Because for them it was, we just need to win more people's hearts. We just want to be accepted by the public. And na'udhu billah, we do see that happening now. So may Allah protect us. It's a very big responsibility. So Iqbal is saying that over here. برق طبعنا رهي شعلة مقالنا رهي. It's that fire and that that move, that the thing that moves you, the words that move you and change your life, those words are no longer there, because if the words are coming from the heart, then they fall on the heart. But if the words are coming,
there's a poem by Imam Shafi'i that falls under the same meaning.
Go ahead.
You know the Urdu stuff, I know the Arabic stuff.
I know.
He says, يا واعظ الناس عما أنت فاعل يا من يعد عليه العمر بالنفس احفظ لي شيبك من عيب يدنس إن البياض قليل الحمل للدنس. He says, ترجو النجاة ولم تسلك مسالكها إن السفينة لا تجري على اليبس ركوبك النعش تنسي ركوبك بغل وفرس يوم القيامة لا مال ولا ولد وضمة القبر تنسي ليلة العرس. He says the same thing. Oh, why? Oh, the advisor, the speaker, the mentor of public, saying all these things to people. How much are you doing? And then he says, Tarjun Najat. You want success, you want salvation, but you're not treading the path of those same people. In the safina, the ship does not sail on dry soil. It needs water. You need to be in the right place. So that's exactly what Iqbal is saying. So much preaching, but little following. May Allah make us amongst those who follow the Qur'an.
You're right about Iqbal. If we met both of us, you would like to more.
No, that's not a question. That's not even something you doubt. This is factual.
He says something about this. He says amazing. He says, अपनी मिल्लत पे क़ियास अक़वाम मग़रिब से ना कर, ख़ास है तरकीब में क़ौम रसूल हाशमी, उनकी जमीयत का है मुल्क व नस्ब पर इन्हिसार, क़ुव्वत मज़हब से मुस्तहकम है जमीयत तेरी. He says, दामन दीन हाथ से छूटा तो जमीयत कहाँ, और जमीयत हुई रुख़सत तो मिल्लत भी गई. So he's saying to us, don't try to the reasons why the world, the reasons why they get together on a table, where it could be money, it could be food, it could be luxury. This is not the makeup of your ummah. Khas hai tarkeeb mein qawm Rasul Hashmi. The makeup of the ummah of the Prophet is different. He's like, for us, قوة madhab se muhstakam hai jamiyat teri. It is the deen that brings you together. If you don't have deen, then khalas, then your unity is gone and your nation is gone. We talked about the idea of nowadays on the table, people are always asking about why are Muslims like this. Iqbal, he says, wo zamane mein muazzaz the Musalman hokar aur tum khar hoye tariq Qur'an hokar.
Wow.
Sahaba became muazzaz Musalman hokar. Like the reason why they became they got respect and they earned that respect and they got all that in the world. You know how they say Umar ibn Khattab ruled this. Well, how? Musalman hokar. They submitted to Allah.
Subhanallah.
It's not that, yeah, they had talent. Everyone has talent. But because they submitted their talent, their potential, everything they had to Islam, and they lived their life according to Quran, Allah gave them izzah. Right? What's the statement Umar ibn Khattab said to Abu Bakr al-Jarrah?
كلنا أذل الناس فعزنا الله بالإسلام لو ابتغينا العزة بغيره أذلنا الله.
We were the worst of all people. كنا أذل الناس. No one cared about us. We were disgraced. Allah gave us respect through Quran. When the Prophet was alive, the Sahaba left Medina and they would come back to Medina. But when the Prophet left this world, they left Medina for the sake of Allah and they never came back to Medina. They just wanted to be with the Prophet ﷺ wherever he was. And that was their only enthusiasm, their only zeal. You know, Iqbal about this, you know, he says something so powerful about this idea of you know, like this, like about death, you know, like we're going to pass away, right? And what happens after we pass away? You know, he has this interesting analogy. He says, I'm not going to say the poem right now because it's a long poem, but his poem is, the meaning of it is, he says that, you know, if dying is unveiling myself and unveiling the Prophet ﷺ, so finally after death I could see the Prophet ﷺ, then don't frighten me through death. That's because I'm just yearning for that moment where I can actually stand in front of the Prophet ﷺ and see him. So don't try to frighten me. Maut ko samjhe hai ghafil ikhtitam zindagi hai ye sham zindagi subh dawam zindagi. He said, people, you know, a person who's neglectful, a person who's a foolish person thinks that death is the end of your life. But no, actually, this is the new morning for a life that's forever eternal with the Prophet ﷺ. Iqbali says about the Sahaba, you know, it starts by he's saying, Diya dane kabhi Europe ke kalisaon mein, kabhi Afriqa ke tabte hue sahraon mein. He starts by saying this. These are people who they never left Makkah, Medina because they had a better opportunity somewhere. They made it.
When you say that, come on, say it slowly and let us digest the words, please, Mufti Sahib.
So he says, Diya dane kabhi Europe ke kalisaon mein. He's like, these people, they did not leave Makkah and Medina, 10,000 Sahaba and Baqi. Where's everybody else? They did not leave Makkah and Medina to earn more dunya. They made a decision that we have to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spread it. So he says, Shan aankhon mein najajti thi jahadaron ki. He's making it clear. It was not the glitter and the glamour of the Romans and Persians that got to them, and that's why they left the city of the Prophet ﷺ. Kalma padhte the hum chhaon mein talwaron ki. No, we weren't doing that. We weren't going to live in palaces. Rather, we were living under the shade of swords. We were not going out there to live in luxury. We were there to live under the shade of swords and say the kalima, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, under the shade of swords. He says, Hum jo jeete the, to jangon ki musibat ke liye, aur marte the tere naam ki azmat ke liye. He said, if we lived to struggle in your path. And when we died so that your name can shine. Aur marte the tere naam ki azmat ke liye. That we will go down, but Allah, your name will not go down. The Prophet's name will not go down. And then he says, Thina kuch tegh zani apni hukumat ke liye. Sar bakaf phirte te kya dahr mein daulat ke liye. He says,
wow.
Listen to this. Thina kuch tegh zani apni hukumat ke liye. Sar bakaf phirte te. Yes.
We can't hear you probably. You gotta say it louder.
Bayan, stop. He says, Sar bakaf phirte te kya dahr mein daulat ke liye. He's like, you know, this idea of Sahaba leaving as conquerors. Iqbal, he just wipes it clean. He says, we had no zeal for power or our own or govern lands. No, tina kuch tegh zani apni hukumat ke liye. We had no aspirations for that. Then he says, if that was the case, Sar bakaf phirte the kya dahr mein daulat ke liye? Why would we be 3,000 versus 100,000? Why would we just put our heads in our hands and walk around? Because these tasks were always odds, numbers were always against us. Do you think we went for power? No, we didn't. Then he said, Subhanallah. Then he says the last line where he finishes, where he concludes this. قوم अपनी जो zar wa mal जहां पर मरती बुत फरोशी की एवज बुत शिकनी क्यों करती? He says, look, people, when they would come to these lands, they would take all the goods, they would sell all the goods, they would get all the gold and silver and glitter and glamour. But when these people, like this, he's talking about Mahmud Ghaznavi over here, but he's talking about Sahaba, and Mahmud Ghaznavi specifically, when he comes into this Hindu temple and he sees this massive idol made out of gold. And he had the option, if he was doing it for money, he had the option of, okay, we're not worshiping this idol. Let's sell this idol. Let's get money. No, he didn't do that. He took a hammer and broke it into pieces. He said, I don't want this money. We're not here for this. So why would they not just sell it? They didn't sell it. They made a business decision. They weren't here for that. They wanted akhirah only. But faroshi ki awaz but shikani kyun karti? They were idol breakers, not idol merchants. They broke idols. They never sold them. Even doesn't matter. People offered them billions, but they never sold it. So this is what Iqbal and in his poem he summarizes. It's Iqbal's poem on this girl named Fatima Shahida rahimahullah, who gave her life. Just all she had. She was a young girl in Libya. All she was doing was serving the mujahideen in the path of Allah, just serving them water. That's all she was doing. And he has his whole poem about them, that Fatima.
One second, before you go to Fatima and the poem, this poem is crazy. It's going to make me cry. So before you get into the poem, I'm going to get my tissues out. But the thing is, the fact that...
I'm not going to go to the poem, though. I don't have time to leave.
You said a little bit, but the fact that Iqbal was, Allama Iqbal was aware of what was happening in Libya.
When he was
and when he was in India before Pakistan partition, and when he was in the middle in the subcontinent, but he knew what was happening in the Middle East, like Syria and in Medina. Like he never went to Medina in his life, but he could speak about it like it was in front of his eyes. La ilaha illallah. Go ahead.
Khalas, I'm not gonna say the poem.
Say some words, please.
So he says, Fatima tu abruwe ummat marhum hai. Basically, he's saying, Fatima tu abruwe ummat marhum hai. You are the pride of the community of the Prophet ﷺ. Like that's why are you the pride? Zarra zara teri mushti khak ka masoom hai. Every single particle of you, the dust that your body touched, is it's so innocent. Ye sa'adat hur sahrai teri qismat mein thi. Ghaziyan Deen ki saqai teri qismat mein thi. It's like this honor of being the hur'een of the desert was in your muqaddar. It was that you were destined to be that one. And to feed the people in the path of Allah, to give them water, this was muqaddar for you. He said, Fatima, go shabnam afsha aank tere gham mein hai. Naghma ishrat bhi apne nalai matam mein hai. He said, oh Fatima, even though I'm crying over you like I'm crying so much, but at the same time, we are also celebrating for you. There's like a song of celebration because look, we are sad that you left, but we're also have this, we're proud and we're so honored that we are from the ummah of yours. We're part of this community, and you gave your life for the Prophet ﷺ. You gave your life for Allah. Yeah, when you find out that your brother or your loved one passed away in Medina Munawwara, passed away teaching Qur'an, going to serve his mother. Yes, you have in one hand, go shabnam afshna. Like on one hand, you're tearing up, but the other hand, you have your chest up saying, Alhamdulillah, we're his brother. We're the son of that person who died doing this act. So that's what he's saying over here.